Hello and welcome to the Alfa Romeo F1 Team Stake 2023 launch under new ownership and a new CEO in Andreas Seidl. Well, it's a really big year for the Swiss team. They will retain their existing driver lineup with Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu behind the wheel of the new C43. I'm Martyn Lee, joined by Autosport's Grand Prix editor Alex Kalinauckas this morning. What have we just witnessed? A bit of a new 23 car or what?
Yeah, I think your wording's great there, Martin. A bit of a new 2023 car. I think technically, absolutely. I mean, compared to the 2022 car we saw from Red Bull and the livery, again, on a 2022 car that we saw from Williams, this I think will go down as the first 23 car to be revealed from Alfa Romeo. But a little bit of sort of caution tapered in there. They've obviously put out the rendered images of what the car will look like in CGI via their official channels, via their press packs. These things they don't necessarily represent what the exact finished product is going to be, because the teams naturally are going to want to sort of hide all their really key details that they hope they've been developing on over the winter, just so the other teams can't get sort of a full handle on it. Also, if you were watching the live stream, if you noticed when Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu took the covers off the car, little things are slightly different to the renders. For example, the floor, the edge doesn't have those sort of amazingly aggressive and dynamic sort of fins that Alfa seems to be going ahead with this year, based on what was in the renders. So slightly different. You think that's probably more of a show car or sort of an adapted, repainted 2022 car. But yeah, officially the first 23 car we've seen, and doesn't it look great? I mean, certainly from a livery point of view, it's really nice, different colour scheme. Again, let's have a little knock at Red Bull. Finally, a team has made a bit of a change, and Williams as well. They're essentially running their 2022 livery. So yeah, a good start to grab the headlines and grab the news for Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, it certainly looks different. No white on the car, which is interesting. It's all red and black. Now, can you just help us understand, what does this say about what this car is? Is it an Alfa Romeo? Well, no, they're just a title sponsor. It's their stickers on it. Is it a Ferrari? Well, mechanically, yes. But is it an Audi? Well, they now have equity in the team. So can you just explain, how does this year play out? How do the next 2 years play out when it's not going to be an Alfa? And then when does it become an Audi? How does that work?
Yeah, so Alfa has always been or sort of the current era of Alfa has always been quite an interesting one, because it's not a works team in the traditional sense. It's a total branding exercise. That car, that team essentially is still Sauber. It's a customer Ferrari operation. So it's very similar. You could almost argue that Aston Martin is the same in a way. It's a race team that calls itself Aston Martin because it has the same owners, but it's not like, say, Ferrari, where everything is totally developed in-house. But yeah, also with Audi coming in for 2026, they don't have overall control of the team yet. They're gradually increasing their stake. So it's almost a little bit it's like, it's new territory in a way for F1. You've got one car manufacturer saying, we are going to buy this team and we have a significant stake in this team, but it's running a total of unrelated car manufacturers, logos and name. Now, obviously that deal was in place. But yeah, I, in terms of the livery changing, I'm not sure that's a reflection of Audi coming in. Obviously, it does actually bear quite the resemblance to the LMP1 cars that the liveries on the LMP1 cars that the Audi manufacturer was running back when it was in the World Endurance Championship before it left several years ago. But yeah, I think if anything, the black replacing the white potentially might be more of a weight thing. Now, we know that Alfa Romeo was the only team to be operating at the weight limit at the start in 2022, but it just, it helps to be able to not have to have extra paint on that carbon fibre. But in terms of how the Audi thing is going to evolve over the coming year, I don't think we'll see a lot. It will still be Alfa Romeo, run by Sauber, everything we're going on in the background. And then gradually, as it builds up towards 2026, the stake will increase, the funding will increase, and Audi will get very visible. I think they're probably wisely gonna stay quite quiet at the moment, let the Alfa Romeo deal play out, and then crack on when it becomes the full Audi squad in a couple of years.
It's going to be fascinating to watch. Now, Bottas says he hopes that this car is more of an all-rounder. So what does he mean by that?
Well, it was interesting looking at Alfa Romeo last year. The team seemed to do very well when its opposition was struggling. So let's think about the beginning of the season, as I mentioned, at the weight limit when the others were above it and couldn't sort of put their ballast around, optimize their cars in terms of their setup around that. The team absolutely made hay while the sun shone. Valtteri Bottas, very, very quick in qualifying, grabbed good points results. We saw Zhou Guanyu get that magnificent point on debut in Bahrain last year. So essentially, I think what Bottas is getting at there is he you want to be strong in your own terms, and that's obviously what Alfa's doing. They're spoken a lot about changing sort of the rear end design, going into the gearbox casings, things like that. So they've obviously thought a lot about areas where they were struggling in 2022, and they've got the ambition, they've got the resources under the cost cap to be able to go and make these changes. So it's all sounding very positive at the moment from Alfa Romeo. But also, I would say, the teams, it's a bit like how if you look at Red Bull, the reason why Red Bull did so well, one of the reasons why Red Bull did so extremely well in 2022 was that they had a car that was competitive over a whole different range of tracks. And that's ultimately the game. You don't want a peaky car. And it was interesting thinking back to Mexico. Suddenly, Bottas was up there again in qualifying. And it goes back to what I was saying about Alfa did well when others were struggling. So, yeah, I think he basically, essentially what he's saying there is, I want a better car, as all drivers will. But it just doesn't want to have those sort of peaks and troughs that the 2022 Alfa was running with.
So let's talk about management then. The departure of Frederic Vasseur to Ferrari, not had their car launch yet, so we'll talk more about him when we get round to them. But what impact will his loss have on the team? I know you followed his career through the coming up to Formula One and now in Formula One as well. So you followed his career as well. What do you think the team will miss from him?
I mean, they'll just miss his own brand of very well-respected leadership. I mean, Martin, you and I recorded a podcast for Autosport the other day. We talked to Karun Chandok, who was witnessing Fred Vasseur's leadership when Lewis Hamilton was driving for his GP2 team, now Formula 2 team, ART Grand Prix. And it's just clear how much drivers all throughout the years have respected Vasseur, and he's obviously able to get the best out of them. He's a well-liked, well-respected man in the paddock. It's fascinating to interview him because it's quite fun actually. He laughs at his own jokes. It makes you feel very at ease. I imagine the drivers get a similar thing, but at the same time, you don't want to cross it. He can be a forthright man. I remember interviewing Sebastian Philippe, who runs the ART Grand Prix operation, also rather an intimidating man. And he got a phone call. We were having this interview, and suddenly Fred Vasseur's name pops up, and he was like, the boss. And it was very clear this is not a man you leave hanging on the bone. So they're going to miss that sort of dynamic element to it. Also, Fred Vasseur's very well politically connected. Like, for example, his Spark Racing Technologies company build all the cars, all the parts for Formula E and Extreme E. So he's a very good political operator, business operator. So that has gone from Alfa Romeo, and that is a blow, of course. But at the same time, they've gained Andreas Seidel, who I think if you talk to anyone in the Formula One paddock, especially in terms of sort of up-and-coming team bosses, if you think of the established ones, Toto Wolff, Christian Horner, how many years have they been at the forefront of Formula One and clearly showing their qualities? Seidel was the one that everybody, if you were going to be starting an F1 team tomorrow, you'd probably say, I want Andreas Seidel to be there. Because again, the drivers had his respect. I remember he's the helm, of course, the Porsche Motorsport operation, when they were coming into Formula E, and I covered that championship. Speaking to the drivers there, some of those who are involved in that ultra successful LMP1, the 919 LMP1 program that the team built from scratch, just talk about how keen they were to work for him. So they've lost Vasseur, Alfa Romeo, but they've gained Seidel. And when you think about, as I said earlier, this is a team that's building towards something. He seemed to be more in the background today. He was sat, he wasn't front and centre answering questions in the launch. He was there in the audience, quietly visible, I'd say. That's what you want. So no Vasseur, got Seidel. Things are looking all right for Alfa Romeo.
A quick plug for that podcast with Karun Chandok you mentioned, out this Thursday, along with Autosport magazine. Karun's Big Questions 2023. He asks the big questions about Formula One. If you want to pick up the magazine, quick plug. Right, 6th in the championship last year. What aspirations have the team got for this year?
I mean, ultimately, it's more points, more prize money. I think this is, as we've mentioned, this is a sort of, it's not quite a treading water period for Alfa Romeo. It sounds negative, but it is, essentially they are waiting for Audi's arrival and for their big change. But yeah, I think it is all about that building up to the new period for Alfa Romeo. But it's what any team wants. It's let's get more points, more prizes, do better in the Constructors' Championship. And it's interesting, there are little things the team can build on. I think, as I said, very strong start to 2022. They're going to want to keep that going. So it's what the drivers often talk about: more consistency, getting the best out of the team. There were a few sort of strange operational things that went wrong last year. I think most famously, or most visibly anyway, there was that weird penalty for Team Box. There was like a team member crossing the pit lane in Brazil in one of the races. I can't remember if it was the sprint or the Grand Prix. But nevertheless, getting a little handle on that will be a key thing to do. And then once you've got things running operationally totally slickly, ideally, as long as the car's competitive, that again will translate into those points that all teams are chasing. But in this case, Alfa Romeo are the ones that we're talking about. They're the ones that want them.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex, for your input on what is probably the first of the 2023 cars, or at least what we're looking at. The back of it, the gearboxy bit, some of that is a little bit new, and we'll take that. And, you know, if it's not a livery launch or a season launch, we get to see some new stuff. But what is going to be coming next? Well, we're hoping to see more. Obviously, some of these cars we'll see before they shake down in pre-season testing with things like filming day, so we'll keep an eye on that as well. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel for the very latest news. Hit like if you like the video, and we'll do more like this. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode, and we'll join you for our next car launch very soon. See you on the next one.